What's up, people? I'm Shaggy the Opinionated Hippie. Today we got some more Grateful Dead. They recently released a box set, Friend of the Devils. I think I called it Friends of the Devil. I switched the S on that Duke video. But a bunch of shows from early 78. I did their lead release. They usually, if they release a box set of like several shows, they'll like single release one so you can get just that show. That was Duke 78. I reviewed that, and then I decided I'm going to deep dive into 78 and cover, at least for a while, all of their officially released 78 shows, see how long I get before I start to get bored and frustrated. 78's an interesting year for the Dead. I think this show is a perfect example of why it's an interesting year. We're doing Red Rocks, 8, 78. They had another box set called July 1978 that they released about 8 years ago. This was the single release that came out of that. And this one is fantastic. I'm going to rank, I'll show you my ranking of all the 78s I've discussed already on video at the end of this. This might be the single greatest show that's been released from 78. There's a release that's higher for me only because it's a compilation of 3 shows, so it kind of cheats. But as far as complete shows go, this one takes the cake. This one I think is top so far. And I have a couple thoughts on that. The first thought on that is this is a really good example of what was good about the Dead in 78 and also what ultimately kind of was maybe the downfall of 1978 as far as consistency. Is the Dead know how to play, right? They are locked in as a band. They're hitting all the right notes. They're not messing up songs. There are occasional vocal flubs, but they got these songs down. They know what they're doing. We're into that era where setlist construction is starting to gel and solidify and become sort of the first set, second set, drum space behemoth that it would be for the 80s and 90s. So all of those things are positive because it gives the Dead almost this floor that they can't go below. But the problem is, a lot of times in 78, they don't really have to be there emotionally or connect with the music to deliver like a competent show. And because of maybe Keith's health problems, their piano player, maybe just friction within the band with Keith, maybe the band just needing some sort of like something new and fresh after all these years, 78 at times can just be like it was competent. The songs were good. Like they didn't mess up, but there was just a lack of something. Red Rocks is what happens when all of those things are working together and there's inspiration. And it's just like sparks everywhere. Plus, I've seen a lot of shows in my life. And I would say that the venue contributes to the experience of a show. Every concert is unique. Unless you're a band that really just goes out there and tries to play note for note and recreate the exact same experience, which I don't think most bands can do that, just because you're going to feel the vibe of a room. Red Rocks is a magical place. I live like a day's drive from Red Rocks, and in the summer, if there are shows, namely My Morning Jacket, I've seen other bands there, but we've made the trek to Denver to see My Morning Jacket at Red Rocks many a summer, because it's a magical place and it just feels special. You can feel that magic in this show. This show there's a spirituality about it. There's we're on the side of the Rocky Mountains. The band is looking up, seeing the audience, seeing the sky. The audience is looking down, seeing like all of eastern Colorado, and Denver's right there. Many a show I've been at, you can see like thunderstorms out in the east just kind of rolling in, and you get the lightning show. It's a magical, magical place. And you can feel that in the energy. You can feel that in the performance. You can feel that throughout this entire show. It's a 3 CD set. You get the complete show over the course of 3 CDs. The first set is relatively short. It fits completely on set one on the first disc, and then you even have 2 songs from the second set on disc 1. And this show is so good. 2 of the first 3 songs I don't care for, and I've been really outspoken on this channel. Good Lovin' and Dire Wolf are songs 2 and 3. Fantastic performances. The energy is great. Everybody's having a good time. I'm already bought in. It opens up with a Bertha, and One of the very first things we get is a dun 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 dun. Brrr. Keith does this piano run, and you're like, Keith, Keith is present. Keith is active. Keith is there from the get go. I think one of the negative sides of '78 is Keith's health issues were really starting to weigh on him musically, and there are shows he just seems like he's not there. Keith is here in this show. I wish he was here more, but there are so many key moments where Keith drops a little phrase or a lick or a run, and you're just like, yes, that is so sweet. And he helps kick off Bertha with awesome energy, and you're just like, all right, the entire band is here for this show. We get a Bertha into Good Lovin', great energy. A Dire Wolf song I've never liked, mainly because I have a hard time saying wolf. El Paso, pretty chill, but good El Paso. And It Must Have Been the Roses, in which Jerry is bringing it vocally. Two Rose songs in the first set, It Must Have Been the Roses and Ramble on Rose. Jerry is singing his butt off in those. There was like that Jerry just grit and urgency, and it's just like, yes, just so good. Must Have Been the Roses, a New Minglewood Blues, a Ramble on Rose, and then a Promised Land Deal to close out the first set. And while Deal is still not like the 10-minute monster that it would be in the 80s and 90s that JGB band would turn it into, we're starting to see the Deal, like, we're starting to see what it could be. It's starting to bulk up. You can see it starting to go to the gym, and it's getting ready for, it's like, I'm going to have to end first sets for like over a decade. I'm going to be ready for that. So Deal, really, really strong closer. Just a really perfectly played, high energy. There's a vocal dropped here and there, but not to any big deal. Just a great first set. First two songs of the second set close out CD1. We get a Samson, we get a Ship of Fools. Pretty typical for this era. Ship of Fools, one of those songs as I get older, just resonates more. Disc 2, looking at the set list, you see there are two pretty nice little set list treats in Disc 2. Things that, as we would move on through time, just don't happen anymore with the Dead. Early before what is now Drums in Space, this is the era, 78, when it's becoming a thing, when Drums in Space is becoming a standard part of the show. We get a pre-drums other one, which is always a treat. And then we get a post-Space Franklin's Tower. Generally, those two are switched because the pre-drums to me always seems like a much happier, celebratory, optimistic exploring place, and post-Space always seems like a more intense, emotional place. And to have those switched, that alone gives this show a somewhat of a different vibe. The Estimated is just fantastic. Jerry is just like, from the get-go, just taken off. Really strong Estimated. That middle solo in Estimated is fantastic. Jerry's like bringing the energy up. And the energy at this point is so high that when we like eventually reach the solo part and we kind of bring it down, you're just like, oh, yeah, they're bringing it down because this is going to be special. Like, it's not like they're bringing it down because they need a break. It's just like, it feels like the energy of this show has been so fantastic that when they get to that solo section, we have like 6+ minutes where you know they're just going to explore. They kind of bring it down and you're like, all right, we're getting ready for something special. And then Jerry's just off. He's just in that off and that introspective, Estimated, but kind of almost a little more aggressive than other Estimateds, but without getting violent, just like energetic, aggressive. Really, really awesome Estimated. Jerry's exploring. Jerry's got that psych tone where if you're on a psychedelic journey, it just tweaks with your concept of time and space. Just absolutely fabulous stuff. Right before it ends and we're about to, like, who knows, go into something, we get just like these almost Crazy Fingers type, like circular type playing. We're kind of breaking it down. We're getting some rumblings of something a little darker, like We're Not Going to Go Into Eyes. Phil does it, drops the bomb on us, and we're off into the other one. And it's just what is it, almost 9 minutes of pure the other one. Jerry just pedal to the metal, soloing aggressively, but not like distorted, angry, aggressive, but that weird, just poking around your brain with that psychedelic noodling aggressiveness. We get both verses. We get a jam after the second verse that kind of leads us into Eyes of the World. Keith has some absolutely beautiful licks throughout here that almost as Jerry is exploring the deeper, darker parts of our psyche, Keith is up here just like, but remember, man, this is all good. This is all positive. Um, just an absolutely fantastic the other one. And to have it come between Estimated and Eyes before Estimated and Eyes can hook up and become like, almost like lifelong partners. It's a nice little insertion there. The Eyes is fantastic. Pretty upbeat from the beginning, short little solo to open it. The solos between it are just pure Jerry, just feeling it. The solo between the second and third set of vocals gets a little more grittier, a little more dirtier, but we're not really going anywhere too dark. It's just pure high energy from start to finish. I would say that's a thing about 78. We don't really ever take these left turns into these really crazy out there, deep space explorations, or really just stuff that's like, wow, you have to hear this. They've never done anything like this. 78, there's a purity to it. When they're hitting on all cylinders, it's just like, this is the Dead at its most purest, Jerry at his most purest, Bob's rhythm. It's just everything clicks together in like a really, almost like a textbook way for the Dead, but like a really well-written textbook. Really great stuff. So The Eyes of the World is fantastic. We go into a Rhythm Devils, has some nice, we get a little steel drum action in there at some point. The space is very almost sounds like like there's a seance is happening. There's some sort of what sounds like handheld percussion that's going on, like some like shells type percussion that's going on, and there's just like these eerie noises that the rest of the band is making, that it has this almost like walking through a haunted house doing a seance type vibe, trying to like exercise or maybe celebrate and bring out whatever spirits are there. And it doesn't get too intense, which is perfect, because it leads into what I would argue is the highlight of the show. An absolutely beautiful, exquisitely played, gentle, just a wharf rat for the ages. And the best thing about this wharf rat, the last Dead video I did a couple days ago was for Duke 78. The wharf rat on that was probably the highlight of that show. And that wharf rat was energetic and aggressive and had like two jaw-dropping solos, and they were bringing the intensity, and it was a committed story, but there was like emotion behind it. This is almost the exact opposite of that. It's the exact same script. Like they're playing the exact same song, but in the course of like a matter of months, they are delivering two absolutely different versions, both of which are equally devastating. And it's almost like the Dead have the ability to like take a movie script and make a Quentin Tarantino film out of it, and make like a Steven Spielberg movie out of it, or even a Mel Brooks, not that funny, like a Steven Spielberg movie out of it. And it's just the beginning of this. Jerry's playing this little solo before we get to the first vocals, kind of setting up the emotional tone of this, but it's not an aggressive solo. It's like introspective and like, hey man, like I got something to tell you about. The closing solo is almost celebratory. Jerry's just like, let's be positive. Let's end this on a good note. Oh, it's a magical wharf rat. And that goes into Franklin's Tower. Just Franklin's Tower's keeping some of that energy. It's kind of keeping some of the gentleness. We do have a really nice middle solo where things really start to get intense, but they don't freak out. They don't get too energetic. They kind of stay within a comfortable, gentle mode. It gives the latter half of the show a completely different vibe, but one that works. You're like, yeah, I would love more Franklin's Towers towards the end of a show, just so they can have an extra 10 minutes to just kind of stroll and jam and stretch out. The ending's pretty interesting. It's like they don't know how to wrap it up. It's like, wait, we haven't played Help. Do we make a callback to Wharf Rat? Do we end with a callback to Estimated? What do we do here? So they kind of fake their way through an ending that kind of breaks down, and then Sugar Mag erupts out of it. And the Sugar Mag is whatever energy was not put out there during the course of the main set. Sugar Mag's like delivering it. A fantastic Sugar Mag. A Sugar Mag that sort of exceeds Sugar Mag expectations. And then the Encore. They're not done. They drop a Terrapin Station on us. Absolutely fantastic. The lady with the fan part, some lyrical problems. Musically, it just seems like something's lacking. But once they get into that like spacey, weird part before they, since the end is never told, everything from there just clicks on. Once they get to Terrapin Station, the ending jam is just ridiculously magnificent. Um, and listening to this and thinking of like the environment of a show, I saw the Dead in, I think it was 89, Alpine Valley here in the States in Wisconsin. And the third show was just pouring rain, just like torrential rains. We had lawn seats. I remember it being like you just found a spot and you stood, and then your feet would just sink into the mud because if you tried to dance, you were like slipping and falling. I'm pretty sure I discovered that the hard way. Um, but during the Terrapin Station, I just remember that ending jam just having this almost spiritual, magical, like sort of, it became a completely spiritual experience. And the rain and the weather and sort of the misery we were experiencing on a physical level completely went away because the music was just taking the entire place and just uplifting it. And I can only imagine that's what it was like to experience this Terrapin Station at Red Rocks on a July night. I mean, just absolutely magical, and you can just feel that magic, even on a CD like decades later. Um, we get a one more Saturday night that works only because it's Saturday night, and so far this show has been magical. And Bob's like, "Hey man, I got nothing else to say. Let's just party. Let's we're done." And then Jerry's like, "Yes, well, I got one more thing I do want to say. Let's drop a Werewolves of London." And to think that I probably could have Googled this, maybe I will Google this. If there had been a full moon, I mean, that would have been, I don't know if you can Google this. When was there a full moon? I wonder if you can Google when there was a full moon. But if they were in Red Rocks in uh and there was a full moon that night and they dropped a Werewolves of London, that would have been absolutely fantastic. Oh, absolutely, you can. The full moon was on July 20th, apparently in Denver. So there wasn't a full moon on that night, but probably should have been some. There should have been a moon present, I'm imagining. But yeah, it's like an almost perfect show. The vibe is good. The performance is absolutely amazing. Um, Werewolves of London closes out. Absolutely fantastic. I saw them in London, and they closed with Werewolves of London on that Halloween show. I think it was a Halloween show. Maybe it was the first. But I just remember, probably Halloween. I just remember running, being an obnoxious American at the tail end of a dead mine journey, wandering through the they don't call it the subway there. What do they call it? The tube, the underground, wandering through, waiting for our trains, and all the deadheads, probably most of us Americans, and annoying the heck out of the British. I apologize. Just howling like Werewolves of London. It was a memorable experience. All right. This is where I would rate that among all the others. I have it at number 2. That first one is a compilation of 3 shows. The energy is just fantastic, just hits it out of the ballpark. But as far as complete shows go, this Red Rocks thing, it's special. It was the right one to pull out of the July recordings. It's just, if you've never been to Red Rocks, it's a magical place to see a show. I highly recommend, if you're a hardcore concert goer, try to get there sometime. Find a band you love, find a band you've experienced before, go see them in this place and compare, because it's great. But that's it. Subscribe, like, share, comment. I'm rambling. Go listen to the show. It's amazing. Thank you, Keith, for showing up. Bob sounds great. The whole band sounds great. Donna hitting all the good backing notes whenever she needs to. Fabulous performance. I'm rambling. Peace. Talk to you later.